I'm going to read you a list.
Okay.
And then ask you why people see the glass as half full.
Yeah.
Because this feeds off what you just said. Murders are way down. Illegal immigration is down. The stock market is soaring. Jobs are up, including manufacturing jobs. I mean, the list does go on. Wages are up. Things on paper look great in this country. And yet even you said that you are, what was your expression? Cautiously pessimistic. So, I mean, even you have a little of that glass.
Long-term optimistic. We have the greatest country on the planet, and we should applaud that. We should teach that. We should educate that. And while this country had problems in the past, we have these extraordinary things that a lot of other people don't have. If you opened up our borders, half the world would want to move here. People wouldn't want to move to China. And so we should count our blessings too, but acknowledge, you mentioned those positive things, those are true, but if you are in the lower 25% of society, you're the ones who go home to areas with more crime, your incomes didn't go up for years, you're dying 10 years younger, you have there's more suicide and opioid and depression, the inner cities, the schools aren't working necessarily for your kids, it's become intergenerational, we're not giving the skills they need, and they looked at things that, and they do see, a lot of people getting very rich, but not them being helped. So we should be lifting up all of society and have plans to how are we going to fix these things, acknowledge where there are flaws that don't work. And I think, by the way, ineffective and incompetent government is part of it. People look at what we do in government and they say, well, what did you do with the $5 trillion we gave you? And we had very long wars, we had EV companies getting gifts, all these companies getting gifts, but is it helping the rural areas or is it helping the inner cities? Is it helping those kids who aren't graduating high school? So, we should acknowledge those things and have plans to fix them.
You don't feel we do have plans to fix them?
I think we have failed to do it for 20 or 30 years.
Even through the Democrats?
Through anyone. I mean, just look at the facts. If you look at, some of these schools, and you said immigration is down, but illegal immigration is higher as it's ever been in this country for 4 or 5 years. And we did nothing about it.
And you think we should?
Absolutely.
We have the strongest economy in the world. We're the envy. You know this because you're constantly traveling. We're the envy of Europe. We're the envy of Asia. What does that mean, actually?
Well, okay, if you look at here, just give you some numbers for the American public. Our GDP per person used to be roughly equivalent to Europe's, and now it's 30% higher. And that's innovation, it's growth, it's business, it's capital investment, it's all these various things that we do. And then you took the positives. Jobs are plentiful, wages are fine going up to the low end, stock prices are up, home prices are up, businesses are making money. But I would put two real buts in there. One is a lot of it is also fueled by a lot of fiscal and monetary stimulus, which drives inflation a little bit. And I think the geopolitics is very complicated. It's scary, it's complicated, how we're going to deal with Russia, Iran, North Korea, and ultimately with China. And so I do think there are issues out there that legitimately have people concerned and that we need to work on properly.
If anybody listened to what we have just said in the last 5 minutes, they would be so confused. I'm confused. Yeah. First, it's the best we've ever been. It's the worst we've ever been. I mean, it's like a novel here. The best of times and the worst of times.
Yeah, the world is not binary. There are all these flaws we have, and there are all these wonderful things about the country. And I've given examples in the past where we grew at 2% a year for 20 years. And I think it should have been 3%. I think the reason it wasn't 3% is because we didn't get so many things right. Affordable housing, work skills education, literally an overweening bureaucracy that just cripples the formation of business, et cetera. Had we grown at 3%, so 2% is not bad. I mean, if you're Europe, you would have loved 2%. But had we grown at 3%, our GDP per person would have been $15,000 per person higher this year than it was. And that's a big number. That would have paid for a lot of benefits and services and growth and capital investment. And so I look at it sometimes, well, what are the policies that can drive that? What did we get wrong and what should we fix? And just because we're doing better than Europe doesn't mean we shouldn't be a little more ambitious in what we think we're going to accomplish.
But you're cautiously pessimistic. What are you pessimistic about?
I think I mentioned the fiscal monetary stimulation and the effect of that, and maybe persistent inflation, and the geopolitics. I do believe it's the most complicated and risky geopolitical situation since World War II. You have the terrible war, Ukraine and Russia. What's going on in the Middle East is terrible. You have Iran, maybe on the verge of nuclear weapons, North Korea sending troops. And we have a world that, made it on fire, but it's smoldering. And American leadership is required to fix this. And then we have China and the complexity of that relationship. It's not just Taiwan, but think of the global economic relationships. I just think those are really important subjects. I think we'll get through them. And, we should applaud, anything we can do to get through those issues. But that is of great concern to me.
Donald Trump coming in, new president. I was told, you tell me if it's true, that during the campaign that you occasionally gave him some advice. So now he's about to be president. Advice now?
Yeah.
What about, for example, steps he might take to help the economy? Very specific.
Yeah, I didn't speak directly to him. I spoke to some of his staff. So I'm a patriot. I mean, I think the country is unbelievably great. I want to make it better. I think collaboration works. I think yelling and screaming at each other doesn't. I think politics aside, policy's got to be right. So the policies are the ones we've kind of spoke about a little bit. Get immigration, border security right, and then proper immigration after that, legal immigration, wanted immigration, whether it's seasonal workers, H-1B visas, which I think most people kind of agree with, by the way.
Has he been right on that, in your view?
As I have this debate with my wife, yes, in general. You can talk about specifics and disagree, but the concern around border security, obviously, every country in the world is concerned about that.
What does your wife say?
She understands that in that issue, yes, but you can disagree with other very specific things. But in the big picture, my guess is 90% of Americans say, yes, we should have proper border security. They might mean something slightly different when they say that. And I think work skills, I would love to see high schools, community colleges, and college measured on what is the outcome of the kid being educated. Like, do they get a job that's well paying? Not do they do math well? Because I think they would put a lot more pressure on schools to teach skills that could give you a really good paying job. So that could be cyber, data analytics, advanced manufacturing, nursing, technical skills, compliance, financial skills. We should do that. I'd like to see taxation where we get rid of some of these. We have far too many tax breaks for different groups, and I don't want to get into detail there, but we should get rid of most of them.
And should get rid of tax breaks?
A lot of them, yeah.
For the wealthy?
For anyone, if it's unfair or just targeted to a special group, and I think it would spread the wealth. I would double the earned income tax credit. I think that alone would put a lot more money into the pockets of people who are working, who are lower income. It would go into their communities, into their families. We know one thing about jobs. They bring dignity, household formation, better social outcomes like children. They'll invest in their schools. They'll invest in a local community, less recidivism, less crime.
But didn't President Biden put money into the hands of lower income people after the pandemic?
I think that pandemic spending did put hands on a lot of people under different things. I'm talking about I'm talking about a permanent increase in earned income tax credit as it's currently constructed with some modifications how it's done.
No, but I'm saying whatever the mechanism was, he did that, and did it work?
Some of it worked, yeah, but I think some of it was excessive. I mean, there was trillions of dollars given out. I'm talking about a very specific thing that is for people who are working but are making less than $14,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 a year. Think of it as a negative income tax that would be dramatically helpful to rural areas, inner city schools, lower income. It would provide more opportunity, better social. It would be great for society. That money will probably be spent, i.e. it'll drive GDP. I think we can make mortgages far more affordable if we change some rules and regulations. I think, I'm in favor of, effectively, can we make government more competent, more efficient? And I can give you a million examples, and I don't want people in your audience to think I'm talking about banks. I'm not talking about banks. Every single person out there who deals with the federal government, particularly small businesses, know the bureaucracy is extraordinary. We all laugh at it now. I can't get permits. I can't get certificates of occupancy. I can't get this. The schools won't do that. People don't have to go to work anymore. All these things, it's got to be changed. I think it drives a lot of low morale, and anger at the government. And so it's got to be fixed. The government needs to demonstrate its competency.
People have been saying that as long as you and I've been alive,
Yeah.
and nothing changes.
Whatever it is, we should try to make it better. And I think the companies do that die. And if you look at what's happened in Europe, one of the reasons why they have slowed down so dramatically compared to us is because of excessive regulations, bureaucracy, anti-business behavior, anti-innovation. It's all those things. And you see that happening around the world. We should not allow it to happen here. And therefore, we got to get involved in the issues in Washington, D.C. to change how we handle government. I think every government department should report to you and say, dear taxpayer, you gave me $50 billion. I told you I was going to do X. Here's what I did. Here's the outcomes.
We don't do that.
But why not? I just think we've lost our way, and we should try to help get back on our way. It's more important than anything else we can do to make sure this great country of ours stays great.
And what are the chances? I hear you saying this, and I'm thinking, that's not going to happen.
I don't know. I think it's my view, okay, I spend a lot of time in D.C., just roll up your sleeves and get involved in the fight. You can complain like a child, you can get mad, you can rip your hair, you can say that's what it is. You can laugh when I talk about, I tell tons of stories and people, they laugh. I say, but it's not funny.
Like stories like what?
Well, you can't get permits, like some of the stuff we're doing in the green economy, but you can't get in the grid. It takes 5 to 7 years to get it hooked into the grid. I go on and on about, like this bridge between Staten Island and New Jersey.
Yeah.
It was falling down, took 12 years to get the permits to rebuild it. What is that about? And we accept it. Now, I wouldn't accept it at JPMorgan, but the American public knows this is going on. They know that, very interest groups get benefits from whatever government's in party. And, in my view, it should all stop. They should stop virtual signaling. They should stop all these things. They should just deal with what could make the country grow. And I've written in my chairman's letter all these policies that could make us grow better and make us healthier, share the wealth a little bit, create equal opportunity, which was the dream of this country. My grandparents were Greek immigrants. 3 of them were Greek immigrants who came here without a high school degree. Billions of people move here if they could. We just got it. And they move here for all that reason, by the way. They want to be American.
I listened to you talking about the bridge. I did a story on the Big Dig in Boston. It was the same thing.
Right.
They couldn't get permits. The price kept escalating the number of years it took to build. We did the story on 60 Minutes, nothing happened. Now you have the same thing going on here. I mean, it doesn't change. I can do stories, you can scream into the wind.
Yeah, I know.
Nothing changes.
I'm going to fight to the day I die, yes.
Yeah. So where are we heading?
You got to give it the best.
Just keep fighting.
I think you got to, I tell all business people and other folks, you can get discouraged. That isn't going to fix it. So there are a lot of people in Washington, D.C. who know about this and want to fix it. The new president is talking about fixing some of this stuff. Let's try to help. And the other thing is, because that great book written by James Fallows, 50 Cities, or Our Towns, like he went to all those towns and that these towns were actually growing and expanding and fixing the parks and the river parks and bringing in businesses and trying to fix the schools. It works. That's kind of small democracy. It works. In Detroit, the collaboration between that mayor and business and civic society, it works.
Did it work?
Yes.
Because we did the story with you.
Yes, just go. You did the story with me. Just go downtown now. They're building you skyscrapers, 25 to 50,000 jobs. Unemployment's good. We opened a virtual call center there. So it's mostly minority community. They work from home, but it's been a home run. I think we have 100 folks there now. So their schools are doing better, their ambulances are doing better, the hospitals are doing better. Business wants to move back. They're fixing their riverfront. It works. It's not over.
In terms of advice for the new president, he is inheriting a pretty good economy, despite what people feel, all these metrics that you see. But what about advice to him on some of the policies that he's threatening to do that could hurt the economy? For instance, tariffs. Have you talked to him about tariffs? If you could talk to him right now, what would you say?
I have not spoken about tariffs. I think you should read The Art of the Deal. He's a negotiator. He lays out some very tough things, and sometimes it works. We have to worry more about national security, resiliency, diversified supply chains, and we didn't. And also, we should have worried more about who it hurt. So while trade's got some enormous benefits, it does hurt that town where the plant closed. We had a thing called trade adjustment assistance. which was supposed to give people retrain, relocation, income assistance if they were hurt by trade. It never quite worked. And so we need to focus on some of those issues. And to me, tariffs are a tool, properly used, that can help get some of those issues resolved. Unfair competition, national security issues. If like any tool, if it's misused, it can do damage too.
But your point is that you think it is a legitimate negotiating tool.
Absolutely. Every country is allowed to make its own unilateral actions. If you look at what China's been doing for years, they do this already.
Threaten and...
No, they put up their own tariffs, their own laws, their own rules, their own regulations. They make a lot of unilateral actions that they think are in their own best interest. So it's not bad for our government to do that. That tool may be a useful tool, properly used.
Not the price of eggs.
No, of course. No, inflation.
That's part of it, folded into it.
It was inflation. It was all the money that was given out. If you go to a rural area and you look at all the things that were done, okay, those things like even EV credits, all this green stuff, they don't look like it benefited them. They still didn't have jobs. Their incomes didn't go up. Their schools weren't working. So you got to be very careful when you analyze what happened in our society about why people looked at these and said this didn't work for me. I'm quite sympathetic. I do a lot of work with my wife in inner cities in New York, and she's been doing work in the Bronx for years. It's hard to look at parts of the Bronx and say this worked, and this has been going on for 30 years. So. It's time that we fix some of these things, and yes, I hope we can do it.
Your relationship with him? Story, we all read that you called to congratulate him and he wouldn't take the call.
No, that wasn't true.
It wasn't true?
No, I did not speak to him. I called and left a message with his staff, who said they called back and said they gave the president a message and he appreciated it. That's all that happened. I've not spoken to the president for a long time. I have called some of his people and offered my help, which I am going to do as best as I can. So a lot of them can't talk at this point because they're in confirmation process.
But
and he made a very nice tweet about me. I thought it was very sweet, that I won't be Secretary of Treasury, appreciates what I've done for my company and my country.
Did you want to be Secretary of the Treasury?
Not really.
Nah. Well, you have the best job for you.
I like my job, yes.
Yeah, clearly. What about his choices for the cabinet? I mean, they seem not to be chosen because of their experience, but because of their loyalty to him.
I'm not going to get into any specifics here other than to say whoever gets confirmed, that's the Senate's job, I'm going to try to help do the best I can for the country. Whether I think they're good or not is irrelevant.
Crypto, in your view, is okay?
Blockchains. Yeah, the use of blockchains for money, moving data, we already use it. Stable coins are real. How they're used and how they're protected by regulators is an issue they have to deal with. I think a lot of the folks in DC know that. JPMorgan is already using blockchain for intraday repo, moving of data. Blockchain itself will work, and that's kind of crypto. Mm-hmm. Right? Crypto contracts, embedded contracts where you can go somewhere and see what this building is. You can buy 0.1% of a building with all the detail there and all the data in a permissioned area. Yeah, it'll have uses. Remember, we've been talking about it for 10, maybe 15 years. There hasn't been a lot, other than Bitcoin. And Tether now is quite big. So
you have been running JPMorgan, the biggest bank, for nearly 20 years. 320,000 employees. What do you do? What does the head of an organization like that do? Can you explain what you do?
I'll try to explain. Well, first of all, I'm very proud of the company. We do business in 100 countries around the world. We bank all these countries, cities, schools, states, hospitals, 60,000 middle market companies, 12,000 large corporations around the world. We move $10 trillion a day. We do like $4 trillion a year of financing for consumers, mortgages, credit card, loans. It's extraordinary. And we reach out to disadvantaged communities.
Well, but what do you do?
Yeah,
That's
well,
what
the first thing I do is I wake up in the morning, I read a lot of stuff, a lot of newspapers.
What time do you get up?
Yeah, unfortunately, because of what's going on around the world, earlier and earlier, so now it's more like 4:30. But I read the papers, I read a lot of stuff people send me, and I look at you guys in the news sometimes, and we run a pretty structured place. I've got great people here. We have follow-up lists for everything. We meet every Monday and go kind of around the table, what's going on in parts of the world, the risks we're bearing, if we're having client problems, we make mistakes, how we deal with mistakes, how we deal with governments around the world, not just Washington, D.C. We have almost like a mini State Department to deal with some of those things. And every business is well run. It's got a follow-up list with detail about technology, systems, AI, products, services, branches. And you know, at the end of the day, I know it's a big company, but it's the branch. We have 5,000 of them, but it's the branch. There's a branch manager running the branch with 10 people, and that branch isn't that different than a community bank branch. We do checking, deposits, we might help manage your money, we might have a credit card for you, a debit card, we make mortgages, and we have to make sure we do a good job because customers walk with their feet.
But what do you do? Now that's what the bank does.
Oh, okay,
what
so probably about a third of my time is in kind of meetings people know about, business reviews around the world, management meetings, client-related type stuff. I'm probably on the road 40% of the time, and I see clients and regulators, and I love hanging out with the management team, take them to dinner with spouses sometimes, and ask them, what can we do better as a company? We have these bus trips, and we ask people in the branches and the bus trips or clients, what can we do better? What's the stupidest stuff we do? If you're going to name a bunch of bureaucratic things that we do that make your job harder, what are they? And we try to fix them. And so, you know, traveling and getting out there and seeing your people
You're
and constantly learning. I'm a cheerleader, but it's not just to cheerlead. It's also to learn from them. So I think it's a mistake for someone to go to like a call center and say, rah, rah, we're a great company, without saying, by the way, what did we do wrong? You may have come from another company. What did you do better? Constant analysis, constant observation, constant follow-up lists. You got to make it fun. You know, we have a National Achievement Conference, and literally, I'm going to say there's 2,000 people in the room. They're from the branches. These are not our higher income. They're not investment bankers. Some have never been in an airplane, and you know we.
Oh, you fly them in?
Yeah, it's usually a big place. You need a big place. Usually Las Vegas or Nashville or Orlando or something like that. And the management team all goes. We kind of work half the time, you know, half a day, and then have a barbecue. But then we have the awards section. Most of us are on stage for hours, thanking them, greeting them. Some of those people are crying. They've never been recognized. The last person comes up, we're playing the song Simply the Best, and it's unbelievable. And it makes you appreciate what they do. We learn from them. It's motivating that I know if I don't do a good job, I'm hurting not just 30,000 people, but 80 million American consumers and countries around the world. So we all work pretty hard to make sure we're doing a good job.
What does it take to be a leader of a big company? Are there specific qualities, or is it indefinable? I'm
not sure I'd separate big from small, because I'll tell you what I think are important ones. One is detail, analysis, facts, repeat, rinse. Why is that branch doing better than that branch? How can I make this a little bit faster for the customer service person? How can we do a little bit better job helping the customer? Are we reading our customer complaints? Second is...
You know what? That sounds boring.
It's work.
Sorry.
It's work.
It's work.
Yeah, and then it's, I'd say, administration. A lot of people are a hot mess. They don't have follow-up lists. They forget everything. They don't return their phone. They may be nice people. They may be great at the analytics, but they can't run anything. So think of if you're running, I always use like Ike Eisenhower, you know, Normandy. He had to be an unbelievable manager administrator to get all that stuff done. 7,000 trips, 150,000 troops, the food, the weapons, the equipment, the bullets, the boats, the paratroopers. But that's really management. But then I think the last part, which I think is the most important, I'm going to use two words often not used in business, heart and curiosity. You know, the heart is that, do you actually care? And people know. They know if you're a BSer. They know if you don't care. They see it in your actions. They see it in how you treat people. They see it in how you deal with every issue you come up with inside the company. When a client calls and makes a complaint, you read it and you say, oh my God, this client is right. We mistreated them. As opposed to, that's our policy. And curiosity is constant learning. There's a humility of curiosity, which means I don't know. Tell me how you do that. How come you did such a good job there? One of my former partners, Bob Lipp, used to, at the end of the year, spend a week calling all the best branch managers saying, what did you do to get so good? How did you learn? Then he'd share best practices with people. Curiosity, heart, constant learning. Here's a new word for you. Maybe not. Maybe you know this word. Energy. No, energy. You better bring... Huge. You better bring real energy and drive. I should add that, grit. A little bit of courage, a little bit of grit, and you're all companies, not all companies, all institutions, and I'm talking about not-for-profits, schools, governments, small business, large business, Their natural state is getting slower and more bureaucratic.
You know, that's an
and
awful lot of stuff that you have to have in one person.
If you're the boss, you better make sure that you're killing the bureaucracy all the time and you're speeding stuff up and not slowing it down. Because if you allow the natural progression to take place, the bureaucracy, it's just barnacles on the boat. And you see bureaucracy in little ways. Meetings after the meeting. No follow-up list after a meeting. But bureaucracy leads to politics. Politics leads to cancer effectively and death. And you better drive these things. You see this in institutions, you see it in governments around the world. They're not facing their issues, and people get ahead is not based upon, are you the best pitcher, but it's based upon how well do I know you. And so you better be, manage these things to try to get it right. And no matter how good you are, you'll never get it all right.
Can I ask you about the loss of trust that people have in our institutions in this country now? The loss of faith in our courts, in our corporations, in our government, and in the press. I don't know about you. It's a distressing thing to me. How do you feel about this, and what do we do about it?
I don't feel good about it, but I think it's very important. It's not completely true. It's like when you ask people, do you trust lawyers? I mean, I forgot that 80% are going to say no. If I ask you, do you trust your lawyer? What's your answer?
Of course.
Of course. Same with doctors, same with stockbrokers. And so people tend to say that, but they don't. Do most people, when you look at surveys, do they like where they work? Most people actually like their job. Okay?
Yeah, but if you don't have faith in the Supreme Court and you don't have faith in a corporation.
Yeah, I think our clients have faith in us. We break our backs for them. We're there for them through thick or thin. We were there for them through COVID, the great crisis where we didn't need government money. So they know we're there through thick or thin. We make mistakes, and I think it's very important. You have a client make a mistake, you acknowledge the mistake. They don't mind you making the mistake. They mind you, no, we didn't, or like, okay, I got to fix it. Thank you for telling me so I can fix the system. There are a lot of people. I don't know why it's gotten so bad everywhere. I think part of it is we talk about government. I think government has to do a better job justifying what it does and how it does it and what the outcome is. I'm not talking about firemen and police. I'm really talking about, the $4 trillion that goes to the federal government, in some cases state and local governments. I think we don't teach enough about what's great about the country. I think when we denigrate ourselves nonstop, I think it just starts to cut away at any faith in any institution. And I don't want to blame the press, but I think the press can do a slightly better job too. Social media, you read the same stuff I read. There's a lot to go there, and can social media do a better job policing itself? I personally think they can, and I think they should. By simple stuff like verifying who's saying those things.
Yeah,
just that one step.
We just have all these social media companies getting rid of the fact checkers.
But I think the fact checkers doesn't work. I think they should get rid of the fact checkers.
They are getting rid of the fact checkers.
But verify who you are. So when you enter JPMorgan systems, we know who you are. Okay, and because we know who you are, if you're posting something, you are now under the law of the United States of America on what you say, how you say it, and who you say it to.
Yeah, but who's going to say?
And so right now, in a lot of the stuff that's these robots, these fake things, jazzing things up, you would say whatever you want. And I think that's one, by verify. And then also, you should get to pick your own algorithm. This algorithm that's jazzing you up is no different than getting you addicted. And I don't like it. I think that one day, I don't know if it's legislators or companies themselves, should do more about that. Give you a choice of options. When you come to a JPMorgan, we don't make you do what we want. We give you advice. We give you all the options. We try to explain it to you. You should have that. I don't want to see anything about X. I don't want to see violence. I don't want to see X, Y, or Z. But I do like sports, and I like Lesley Stahl. I like that. I want to see. And there's some of that, but there's too much where anyone can say whatever they want, and they're saying it to 100,000 people all the time, and they don't have to. And they can say something that's against the law, but we don't know who they are. And I think that we're making a mistake. I think when you have children, suicide rates with, children are like 50, 75% higher, and it might be because of social media. I mean, I think that, yeah, we should be taking some actions in that. And I'm not an expert in it, but I find it quite disturbing. Without violating First Amendment rights, by the way. You can say whatever you want. It's just, we know who you are, and you're subject to the law.
You have said that we're already in World War III.
I didn't say that.
What did you say?
I said that someone else had said it, and that at a minimum the world is smoldering. The person who said it is someone I respect, and they pointed out that if you go back to World War II, that the war started in 1932 Manchuria, in Spain in the mid-30s, Czechoslovakia, then it was Poland, and then it was Japan, and that it spread. And this person was pointing out that we already have multiple wars taking place and people partnering up like we've never had before. So if you go back to our military planners in 1940, I think even in 1940, it did not occur to them that Japan would partner with Germany. So they weren't prepared for all of a sudden, two fronts.
Yeah.
And so, this thing is that complicated. You have, Russia, Iran, and North Korea aiding and abetting a terrible war in Ukraine, doing sabotage across Europe today, and aiding and abetting, the attacks by, quote, proxies on Israel, and building nuclear weapons. And, nuclear proliferation is probably the worst thing the world faces. And then China isn't necessarily part of that, but they're on the wrong side of that.
Feeding
Okay?
it, yeah.
Yeah, and they're doing microelectronics and benefiting from oil trade and all that stuff like that. So it makes our relationship with China very complex. And I think as long as this war is going on, it'll be even more complex, even aside from Taiwan. I'm talking about national security, trade, unfair trade. Though I do want to point out to the American public, I'm not afraid of China. I already mentioned we have all the foodborne energy in the world. They don't. Our neighborhood is a beautiful place, Atlantic Pacific, Canada, Mexico, no wars. They've got a very complex neighborhood where they've irritated their neighbors quite a bit. Korea, the Koreas, Japan, Indonesia, Vietnam, Pakistan, they're having border skirmishes with India, and Russia. That's a tough part of the world. Our GDP per person is $80,000, theirs is 15. Our demographics are actually rather good, theirs aren't. We have the best universities in the world, the best, and I said the power of that freedom. I think you're seeing a little bit when freedoms get lost. It hurts their economy, it hurts their innovation, it hurts their growth. And so
why don't they see that? It's amazing, isn't it?
The common refrain is that they today look at us as a, decadent, weak and lazy nation. And I look at it and say, there's no way America's weak and lazy. I mean, look at our military. I say, you go to any city in America, open your shades at 5:30 in the morning, open them up, and people are going to work. They're innovating in St. Louis and Bozeman and Kansas City and Omaha, not just Silicon Valley, Boston, and New York. And they're doing it in Austin and Nashville and New Orleans. So we're not weak and lazy, but we are a little stupid and uncoordinated. So they manage, the one benefit to being an autocracy, they can manage government and business as a whole. We can't. And so, sometimes we can't get our act together. We have to get our act together here around China, trade, immigration. What I tell, and I really believe this, is that America, all we have to do is make sure we're strong. Build our national economic power, military power. That's all we need to do. We don't have to be afraid of them. And the stronger we are, the better position we're in. And so I think there are a lot of things, we're huge supporters of the United States military and huge supporters of our economic strength, which is the foundation to all things.
I'm going to ask you something about China,
Yep.
specifically China and American business people. A lot of American companies are pulling out of China because people who work for American companies in China are being harassed, they're being arrested. American companies are no longer making the same kind of money they used to in China. Do you recommend that American companies pull out? Are you pulling out of China? I know
No, we're not.
JPMorgan is there.
It's a little complicated issue, so this is very important. The American government sets foreign policy, not JPMorgan. And so we are in China, we're still in China, and obviously the risk has changed, I completely understand that, and we may have to do things differently because of American policy or because of Chinese policy. But remember, the people we bank there are a lot of American companies.
I know, but they're pulling out.
Well, no, you say that. Some are, some aren't. They're all doing different things. Some are just changing their supply chains. They relied on China for too much, and they're moving some of it to Vietnam or Mexico. So, but those are our clients who are helping them do their job, and we help American businesses expand around the world. In fact, I think we should do a better job of that in Latin America, in Asia, development finance. Help these.
What do you advise your clients? Do you say, go more into China, bring some out, or what's the advice?
So every company's in a different position. If it's around national security issues, you aren't going to be allowed to do it. So don't wait for the government to tell you.
Yeah.
If it's around that you don't have resiliency, you should have that. That's got nothing to do with the American government. You shouldn't be relying on I would never rely on one producer or something for everything we need. So JPMorgan has always been quite diversified. So I would advise them to be diversified. Do scenario planning. Like, what are you prepared for? So we do a lot of risk planning around bad things that can happen, so I can serve my client in good times and bad, mostly in bad. I understand that good times are great, but I have to be prepared for bad times, and they should be very thoughtful about it. So we actually have been advising a lot of companies on, their strategy around China, what they should do, how they should do it, how they should get engaged, as best we can, and also doing a lot of research around where you need to do some of those things.
Is it safe for an American company to be in China?
For the most part, yes, but it's different. It's just changed, and a lot of our employees in China are Chinese, and you have to do things like change your systems so that data is not being shared between China and the rest of the world. Yeah. So there's a lot of work that's got to take place to do that, but those are policies that are set and will be set by the United States government properly.
The Middle East. I just did a story on this incredible operation that the Israelis pulled off against Hezbollah.
Yeah.
And it seemed to have changed all the dynamics in the Middle East in a second.
Yeah.
In a minute, things change. And that seems to have happened in the Middle East. Are you feeling any more optimistic about that part of the world because of this?
Yeah. So I took a trip to Israel basically just to hug our employees and some of our clients, some of whom lost their children in the terrorist acts there. And I think what they've done is amazing. And they've gone against the advice of a lot of the world, but they've wiped out a lot of Hezbollah. They've wiped out Iranian defenses, and in this, we've been dealing with this thing. We have proxy wars forever. I mean, at one point, the world should say there's no more proxy. If you're the person, go at the head. And so, they've been amazing, and it's changed the dynamic and it's changed the power there. You saw what happened in Syria. That's because of Israel, most because of Israel, a little bit of, that Russia's extended, maybe overextended in Ukraine. I think it actually increases the chance of long-term peace. I don't know if you said in your story that, Saudi Arabia and the UAE still want normalization relations with Israel. Hard to do today. Yeah. They also have said, very importantly, at least that's what I've read, that they are willing to, use their military and their money to help get better governments of Palestine and, maybe create a peace force or something in Gaza. Very hard for America to do that. If the Arab community does that, you may actually, create a legitimate Palestinian government, with some kind of maybe a long-term path to peace. I think it has a higher chance than it's ever been before. Very complex place. A lot of people are going to do whatever they can to stop that. But let's keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah. In covering that, I was so struck by how instantly a perception can change. And then I thought about you having your heart problems and how instantly the situation for this bank changed. Yeah. And how we have assumptions about what's going to happen tomorrow and the next day. Yeah. You can't be sure.
That's correct.
About anything.
That's correct.
So why even plan, Hey.
No, we plan it. I mean,
I know you do.
I'm
it's
a risk planner.
planning.
You'd be shocked at the amount of scenarios I always talk to the Federal Reserve about their stress tests. We do 100 a week. And then we do.
Well, give me an example. Give us an example of a stress test.
Okay. Well, what if interest rates go to 8% as opposed to 2%? What if markets fall 50% around the world? What if home prices go down 50%? What if
you have an A team and a B team?
Well, sometimes. What if? And then we do specific scenario planning around. If we've been talking about cables being cut for years. I've known about this problem for years. About what if they get cut? What if it cuts out a whole country for us? What are we prepared for? And of course, now you got to prepare for cyber. They call it hybrid war. Cyber, water, electronics, electricity.
In every part of the world, you go around and
we try as best we can. Yeah.
So that's what you do.
And in markets, and in credit, and in. Can I tell you the most important thing? I feel like we're guardians of the financial system, but one of the really importance of that is that we are strong when times are bad. so that I can help you when times are bad. And we did for clients, some of these crises was extraordinary. I mean, I'm talking about, lending, billions of dollars to potentially a bankrupt company to keep them afloat, knowing that we may lose the money. When oil went to zero, some of our regulators wanted us to stop making certain types of loans to oil companies. And I would say, no. I told them that this is the time to help them in their darkest moment. JPMorgan, I'd rather lose money than run from that client. Help them get through this, and we did. So, that's hope, and hopefully you learn a reputation over time by doing things like that.